Shouldn't I have enough to eat? And don't I deserve a safe place to sleep? When no one can take what doesn't belong to them, and I don't have to look over my shoulder. Why must I pay for my existence? And why must I prove my worthiness? I have a right to basic needs. Why?
My name is James Davis, and on behalf of the second annual BEOP Conference, it is my honor and privilege to introduce Mr. Andrew Yang. For nearly 2 decades, serving as an executive in the startup scene, Mr. Yang also founded and served as CEO of Venture for America. Venture for America's mission of empowering young entrepreneurs and bringing opportunity to America's struggling cities has been a major success since not only he's grown it, but now he's retired to run for elected office. Among his titles, President Obama assigned him as a presidential ambassador for global entrepreneurship and a White House champion for change. His book, The War on Normal People, highlights how a universal basic income could revolutionize the economy in the United States. It's great to have you, Mr. Yang.
I'm very glad to be here. Go Taiwan. Taiwan.
My first question, Mr. Yang, is what are your roots and what drove you to found Venture for America?
Well, my parents immigrated from Taiwan in the 60s. They met in school at Berkeley in California, got married, and then I was born in upstate New York. Dad went to work for GE. So I grew up here in the States. My parents actually moved back to Taiwan a number of years ago, so I go back about once a year. And here I became the head of an education company, and I realized I had so much talent heading to Wall Street and consulting firms and big tech firms now in Silicon Valley so consistently, and there weren't enough talented young people building businesses across the country. And so that's what drove me to start Venture for America, was that I knew that young people wanted to take on that challenge. They just needed to be given a pathway to do so.
So on the topic of young entrepreneurs, the Small Business Administration has reported that only 2 of every 100 millennials is self-employed, far less than that of Generation X and the baby boomers. Why is that? And what trends will we observe in the future?
If you look at the numbers, a lot of it has to do with the fact that we're piling record levels of education debt on our young people, whether graduating from college with $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 in school loans, which makes it much harder to start a business. It also makes it harder to own a house, which ends up being an impediment to starting a business because a lot of people used to mortgage their homes to start a company. But I think a lot of it also is that our culture and social media in particular have made it so that young people feel like they're always visible. And I think that actually makes it harder to start a company, perversely enough, because most of the time starting a company means working for a while in obscurity for some goal. And if you're constantly in the spotlight, it's actually harder to do that.
So in your book, you put forward universal basic income as a solution to a lot of society's ills. Why is it the solution, and what brought you to the idea?
Well, I gave a universal basic income because of the impact of technology on the workforce and the labor market. Where, if you look at self-driving cars, I'm super excited that cars will drive themselves because I've got kids and having a car driving around works. But driving is the most common job in most of the United States, trucks and cars. And if you look around the world, there are taxi drivers everywhere. And if you imagine even 50% of those jobs disappearing, that would be a massive problem. And that's the obvious one, but there are many, many inobvious ones. So if you start playing out the impact of artificial intelligence and other technologies, you realize that we need to come up with a new way to distribute value. If you were to be Machiavellian and tough about it, it would be to keep things from becoming super terrible and violent. And if you were generous and humanist about it, which I'm happy to say I fall into this camp, is that we need to give people a chance to work on things that they care about and live their values, and also be able to take care of each other.
It's been said that young people from wealthy families receive a parental basic income, meaning that if they take entrepreneurial risks, they can always rely on their parents' money if it doesn't pan out. Is this fair, and is this moral? And what implication does it have for income inequality?
There have been rich people and poor people for decades, and it's always been the case that if you're rich, you're going to have a chance to make certain things happen that would be harder than if you're poor. That's probably worse now than it's ever been in terms of wealth being concentrated in the hands of relatively few people, and then having their children be uniquely advantaged. It would be unrealistic to completely counterbalance that, but certainly you hope that there are ways to mitigate it and make it a little bit less drastic and dramatic.
Do you believe that a targeted grant program has any benefits over a universal basic income?
I think that any resources that you could bring to entrepreneurship would be awesome. I'd be leery about, so if someone were to say, hey, let's start this massive grant program for entrepreneurs, that would be phenomenal. I do think that in some ways you're addressing a different problem, because if you look at the people that are going to be displaced by technology and automation, many of those people are going to be among the more vulnerable, the less educated. And so if you had an entrepreneurship grant program, they would probably not be the first people to get it. So it depends upon what you're trying to address. I'm very excited that universal basic income would be the greatest catalyst to entrepreneurship and creativity that we've ever seen. But I'd be hard-pressed to think of a way you could administer that in a way that doesn't end up creating its own set of outcomes that you may or may not want. So I love the universal basic income myself. I love entrepreneurship, and if there are ways to support entrepreneurs independent of universal basic income or supplementary to it, I'll be very excited about that.
One benefit of making universal basic income a government program rather than a privately administered program is scale. The Social Security Administration has very low overhead costs sending checks out to people. So my question is, given your role formerly at Venture for America, what do you see the government's role relative to the nonprofit sector's role?
Well, one of the issues here is that the automation wave is so wide-ranging that it's beyond the reach of even the largest, richest nonprofits. This is truly a government problem, and it's an issue that only government has the scale to address, to your point. There are going to be plenty of things for nonprofits to be working on over this period, even with the universal basic income, because people are going to be able to make different amounts out of their universal basic income. Like there are some people that are going to get universal basic income and build million-dollar businesses, and other people that are going to get universal basic income and still struggle. So there'll be plenty of work for nonprofits to do, but this is a nation-scale problem, and it requires a federal solution. And that's true in the States for sure, but it's true in most of the world, in my opinion.
Immigration is, of course, a controversial topic in the United States, and some people believe that a universal basic income could change the incentives for legal immigration to the United States. What would you do to navigate this issue?
So immigration is a fraught, complex topic in the States. I'm obviously very pro-immigrant because my parents immigrated here. And America, to me, is much, much stronger as a society because of all the people that have come here to build lives and families and businesses and careers. Universal basic income will make being an American much more appealing, but it's already very appealing. So we already have millions of people that have come into the country looking for a better life. I don't think that a universal basic income will necessarily change that myself. And I think we need a clear path to citizenship for immigrants in this country. But realistically, if you're going to get $1,000 a month as an American citizen, then there's going to need to be a very significant waiting period.
There are already a number of programs that serve adults that are in poverty, including Social Security, Medicare, and food assistance programs. Given that these programs already exist, do you believe that universal basic income should be targeted toward young people?
I think a lot of the people that are suffering from displacement right now are not eligible for Social Security because they're not 65 yet. So the average age for a truck driver in the United States is 49, as an example. So imagine you're a truck driver and then you lose your job, or you just can't continue your job because of health problems. That's 16 years way away. So I think young people should get universal basic income. I think middle-aged people should get universal basic income. I think all people get universal basic income. I would not give it to people who are eligible for Social Security, but between 18 and 65, $1,000 a month, the freedom dividend, that's the plan.
A job guarantee is sometimes floated as an alternative to universal basic income. My question is mandating employment a feasible alternative? And what would you say to proponents of a guaranteed job program?
I'm sympathetic to the people that want a job guarantee, but I don't see it as realistic in a place like the States, in large part because of the vast numbers of people you'd be looking at. Even now, as we're sitting here, the labor participation rate in the United States is 62.7%, which is about the equivalent of El Salvador or the Ukraine. There are a lot of people, 95 million or so Americans, who are out of the labor force. So if you were to have some sort of guaranteed job, it would become really expensive and administratively cumbersome. And a lot of the work that you'd be having people do would not be truly high value add. I think at the margins we should do it. I think that infrastructure projects and things that you can put people to work effectively, we should definitely invest in those things. But it's beyond our capacity, in my opinion, as a society to guarantee jobs for tens of millions of people and then employ them effectively in a way that isn't really demoralizing and dehumanizing. I mean, you'd end up with literally thousands of people doing make work and then having some government administrator being like, it actually becomes really dark in a hurry. It's very uplifting motivation. But much, much better to say, here are some resources, let's start businesses, let's start nonprofits, let's encourage pro-social activities in various ways. Here in the U.S., the problem is that we measure the economy through GDP and the stock market. Meanwhile, the economy can grow and it does not help the majority of Americans. And the majority of Americans don't own any significant stock. Literally, the bottom 80% of Americans own about 8% of the stock market. So those are terrible measuring sticks in terms of how your economy is doing. What we need to do is we need to start measuring mental health, emotional well-being, proportion of people in jobs that they enjoy, cultural dynamism, mobility, income equality. These are the things that we need to focus on, average health outcomes. So we need to build a new kind of economy, one that I call human capitalism, and evolve past what we do now. And universal basic income is very much aligned with that. Is that if you have universal basic income, yes, it does create jobs, it creates new businesses, it helps support a consumer economy, but it also helps relationships improve, families improve, children become more conscientious and agreeable. And these are the things we have to start caring about and measuring as a society, or else we're going to keep getting pushed towards these things that serve the capital markets and the stock market, but not humanity.
I see. So I want to thank you so much for joining us for BEOC's second annual conference. It's been great having you, and we appreciate your support.
Thank you. Congratulations for making this conference happen. Again, Taiwan, universal basic income, Taiwanese people, all things that are near and dear to my heart. And I wish I could be there, but I'm there in spirit. And thank you for having me, for putting this on. It's awesome.